To begin an inquiry into the nature of existence is often to start with the mirror, looking upon the skin, the eyes, and the architecture of the face as the primary evidence of our being. We have been conditioned by centuries of materialist thought to believe that we are biological machines that somehow, through a mysterious alchemy of neurons and synapses, secrete a spirit, that the soul is a passenger or a secondary property of the flesh. We speak of having a soul, as one might speak of having a coat or a piece of property, suggesting that the I is the body and the soul is the possession. Yet, if we lean into the great cosmic silence and listen to the older, more resonant whispers of the universe, we encounter a radical and startling inversion of this hierarchy. We find that the truth is far more spectral and profound. You do not have a soul. You are the soul, and the body is the ghost. This realization is not merely a poetic flourish or a bit of metaphysical wordplay. It is a foundational shift in the geometry of consciousness that alters the very texture of how we move through time and space. Imagine for a moment that the universe is not made of matter, but of a vast, undifferentiated ocean of light, a singular field of intelligent awareness that is both the dreamer and the dream. In this ocean, your soul is a specific, focused current, a concentrated beam of that infinite light that has projected itself into a specific frequency to experience the limitation of form. In this context, the body is not the container of the light. It is the shadow that the light casts when it intersects with the density of the three-dimensional world. We have lived our lives as if we were the shadow, frantically trying to patch the holes in the silhouette, never realizing that the silhouette only exists because the sun of the soul is shining behind it. To say the body is the ghost is to recognize its impermanence, its secondary nature, and its quality as a transient appearance in the field of the eternal. The body is the echo of your true being, the cooling embers of a fire that is burning in a dimension we have largely forgotten how to perceive. This inversion carries immense practical significance in an age characterized by physical anxiety, the fear of aging, and the obsession with material preservation. If you are the body, then every wrinkle is a catastrophe, and every year is a step closer to annihilation. But if you are the soul, and the body is the ghost, then you are a traveler who is simply wearing a costume made of stardust and memory. The ghostly nature of the body refers to its quality as a temporary manifestation, a localized condensation of energy that arises for a flicker of cosmic time and then dissolves back into the field. When we stop identifying as the ghost and start identifying as the essence, our relationship with pain, pleasure, and mortality undergoes a metamorphosis. We realize that the I, who is aware of the body, is not subject to the decay of the body, just as the sky is not stained by the clouds that drift across its face. Unveiling these hidden layers of reality requires us to look at the density of our perception. We perceive the body as solid because our senses are tuned to a very narrow band of the electromagnetic spectrum. If our eyes were tuned to different frequencies, we would see ourselves as swirling galaxies of empty space, held together by invisible geometric lattices of intent. We would see that the physical form is the most fragile and ephemeral part of our being, a translucent vapor that is constantly being replenished and recycled. The solid world is the real hallucination. The soul, the animating intelligence that provides the continuity of your I-ness from infancy to old age, is the only solid thing about you. It is the steady vibration that maintains the ghost of the form. By recognizing this, we move from being victims of a decaying physical world to being the sovereign architects of a spiritual experience. Cosmically, This perspective aligns us with the grand movements of the universe itself. We begin to see that the stars, the planets, and the heavy elements are all part of a ghostly materialization of a deeper non-physical law. The universe is a mind-first construction. To inhabit the truth that you are the soul is to align your local consciousness with the non-local consciousness of the source. It is to step out of the frantic, linear time of the body, the time of heartbeats and deadlines, and into the vertical, eternal time of the spirit. We find wonder in the realization that we are not small beings trying to be spiritual. We are infinite beings trying to handle the weight of being human. The body is a marvelous instrument, a sensory suit that allows us to taste the salt of the sea and feel the heat of a fire, but it is a tool, not the workman. This introduction to the luminous inversion serves as an invitation to look through the eyes rather than at them. It asks you to feel the presence that is currently reading these words, not the eyes moving across the screen, not the brain processing the linguistics, but the presence that is witnessing all of it. That presence has no age. That presence has no weight. That presence has no boundary. It is the soul, the only inhabitant of the house. The house itself, the bones, the blood, and the skin is a shimmering, ghostly effect of your presence. As we move into the core themes and concepts of this exploration, we will begin to dismantle the ancient habit of physical identification and learn how to inhabit the throne of the soul, turning our gaze toward the mechanisms that keep us tethered to the ghost and the keys that can set us free. To deepen our understanding of the luminous inversion, we must first address the pillar of primary consciousness. In the traditional materialist view, consciousness is a latecomer to the universe, a fluke of biological complexity. However, the core concept of the soul as the primary reality posits that awareness is the ground of being. Matter is not the mother of mind. Mind is the parent of matter. This means that your soul is not inside your body. Rather, your body is a localized ripple within the vast field of your soul. Think of a dream. When you dream of walking through a forest, your dream body appears to be contained within the woods. Yet, upon waking, you realize that the entire forest, the sky, and the body were all contained within your mind. The theme here is that the body is a mental construct, a condensed form of thought energy that allows the soul to interact with a specific, dense layer of reality. The body is ghostly because it possesses no independent reality. It is entirely dependent on the soul's attention to remain coherent. A second guiding pillar is the concept of vibrational density and the spectrum of form. If we imagine the soul as a high-frequency vibration, pure, rapid, and expansive, then the physical body is that same energy slowed down until it becomes visible and tangible. This is the universal pattern of condensation. Just as steam, invisible and expansive, cools to become water, fluid and visible, and eventually freezes into ice, solid and restrictive, the soul undergoes a process of intentional cooling to inhabit the ice of the physical world. The core truth is that ice is still water. The body is still soul, just in a state of extreme contraction. We mistake the ice for the final truth because it is what we can touch, but the ghost of the body is merely a phase state. To become soul conscious is to warm one's awareness back up to the fluid and gaseous states, recognizing that the solidity of the flesh is a temporary, structural illusion designed for the purpose of learning through resistance. Intertwined with this is the pillar of the witness and the instrument. One of the most profound ways to realize you are the soul is to observe the constant flux of the physical form. Since you were born, every cell in your body has been replaced multiple times. Your thoughts have shifted, Your emotions have cycled, and your physical appearance has transitioned from the soft features of a child to the weathered lines of an adult. Yet there is a singular, unchanging I that has been present for all of it. This I does not age, it simply observes aging. This is the architecture of the constant. If you were the body, you would be a different person every 7 years as your cells recycled. The fact that you maintain a continuous sense of self proves that you are the watcher in the tower, not the stones of the tower itself. The body is the ghost because it is a moving target, a shimmering projection that never stays the same for a single nanosecond, while the soul is the eternal, unmoving center. Furthermore, we must explore the concept of the sensory interface. We often believe the body is our identity because it provides our data: sight, sound, touch, and taste. However, the soul is the user and the body is the interface. To identify as the body is like a pilot identifying as the airplane, or a diver identifying as the diving suit. The diver feels the cold of the water through the suit, but the diver is not the suit. The theme of the ghostly suit reminds us that physical sensations are translations. Pain is a signal being read by the soul. It is not the soul itself. When we realize that we are the reader and not the page, we gain a transformative distance from physical suffering and worldly attachment. The body is ghostly because its sensory reports are limited and often deceptive, providing only a tiny fraction of the reality that the soul is capable of perceiving when it is not filtered through the narrow slits of the eyes. Finally, we encounter the theme of creative projection. The soul does not enter a body, it projects a body. This is the difference between a person walking into a room and a cinema projector casting an image onto a screen. The image on the screen appears to be doing things, running, crying, speaking, but the reality of the image is the light in the booth. As the light shuts off, the ghost on the screen vanishes instantly. The core concept here is that life is an ongoing act of will. Your soul is currently willing your heart to beat and your lungs to move, mostly from a level of subconscious genius. The body is the effect and the soul is the cause. By shifting our identification to the cause, we reclaim our sovereignty. We stop being afraid of what might happen to the image on the screen and start focusing on the quality of the light in the projector. These core themes reveal a universe where the solid is actually the most fragile and the invisible is actually the most enduring. We move from the illusion of being a biological accident to the truth of being a spiritual necessity. The body, as a ghost, is not something to be despised or ignored. It is a beautiful, fleeting apparition to be honored, but never mistaken for the master of the house. As we move into the deeper symbolic narratives, we will see how this relationship between the flame and the smoke has been captured in the myths and allegories of humanity, illustrating the eternal dance between the essence that stays and the form that fades. To truly internalize the truth of the luminous inversion, we must look into the ancient mirrors of allegory, where the relationship between the eternal and the ephemeral is told through stories that bypass the analytical mind. One of the most profound symbolic narratives is the allegory of the master glassblower. Imagine a craftsman of infinite skill who exhales a single, long breath into a molten gather of starlight. As he blows, a beautiful, intricate vessel begins to take shape. This is the physical body. To the casual observer, the beauty lies in the glass, in its curves, its transparency, and its fragile grace. But the master knows that the life of the vessel is not the glass itself. It is the breath trapped within it. The glass is merely the boundary that allows the breath to have a temporary shape in the world of form. When the vessel eventually shatters, as all glass must, The breath is not destroyed. It simply rejoins the atmosphere, free of its crystalline cage. The body is the ghostly vessel, a beautiful but brittle structure that exists only to give the infinite breath a moment of definition. In the mystical traditions of the Constant Watcher, we find the parable of the golden sun and the moving clouds. There was once a kingdom where the people lived in perpetual fear of the sky eaters, dark, heavy clouds that would occasionally block out the light. They believed that when the clouds arrived, the sun had died, and when the clouds departed, the sun was reborn. They spent their lives studying the clouds, labeling them, and trying to appease them. One day, a traveler arrived and told them to climb the highest mountain. From the peak, looking down, the people saw that the sun was always there, a steady and unmoving source of radiance, and that the clouds were merely thin, translucent vapors drifting far below. The sun did not have a light. It was light. The clouds were the ghosts, shadowy appearances that had no power to stain the brilliance of the day. This narrative teaches us that the soul is the constant sun. Your illnesses, your aging, and your physical limitations are the clouds. They move across the field of your life, but they never touch the essence of the eye that observes them from the mountaintop of awareness. Consider also the myth of the silver cinema. Imagine a theater where a film is being projected onto a screen made of fine mist. The characters in the film are vivid. They love, they fight, and they fear their own end. Because the screen is made of mist, the images appear ethereal and shimmering, yet the audience becomes so engrossed that they forget they are watching a projection. They begin to believe the mist is the reality, but the real element in the room is the projector's beam, the steady, white light that carries the information. The characters on the screen are the ghosts of the light's intent. As the mist dissipates, the image vanishes, but the light remains, searching for a new medium. This represents the creative will of the soul. Your body is the mist, a temporary collection of moisture and air that provides a surface for your soul to project its story. We are often terrified that the mist will blow away, forgetting that we are the light in the booth, entirely independent of the screen. There is a visceral power in the allegory of the ocean and the foam. Along the shoreline of existence, the great ocean of the soul crashes against the rocks of the material world, creating a white bubbling foam, the physical body. The foam is intricate, full of tiny bubbles that reflect the light, but it is incredibly short-lived. A bubble pops, and its water returns to the sea. The foam might think it is a separate entity, distinct from the deep, dark currents of the abyss, but it is nothing more than the ocean in a state of agitation. The body is the ghostly froth of the soul's movement. It is a sign that the soul is present and active, but it is not the substance of the soul. When the tide goes out and the foam vanishes, the ocean remains, vast and undiminished. To identify as the soul is to realize that you are the deep water, and the ghost of your physical form is simply the way you look when you touch the shore. Finally, we encounter the legacy of the royal garment. In an ancient tale, a king is required to walk through his kingdom in a series of disguises to understand the lives of his subjects. He wears the rags of a beggar, the armor of a soldier, and the robes of a merchant. Over time, the king begins to forget his palace. He starts to believe he is the beggar, feeling the cold in his bones and the hunger in his belly. He becomes terrified of losing his rags, for he thinks they are his skin. The ghostly robes of the body are the disguises we wear to participate in the human drama. We have become so invested in the costume that we have forgotten the king beneath. The body is the ghost because it is a borrowed garment, woven from the elements of the earth, destined to be returned to the soil. The soul is the royal traveler who remains unchanged, regardless of whether he is wrapped in silk or burlap. These symbolic narratives serve as archetypal reminders that the material world is the secondary effect of a primary spiritual cause. They move us away from the anxiety of being a body with a soul and toward the majesty of being a soul with a ghost. Whether it is the breath in the glass, the sun above the clouds, the light on the mist, the foam on the wave, or the king in disguise, the message is singular. You are the essence that endures. The body is a marvelous, shimmering apparition, a ghostly dance of atoms that allows you to play in the fields of time. By holding these stories in our hearts, we begin to loosen the grip of physical identification, preparing us to explore how this profound shift can be integrated into the practical, everyday experience of being alive. To transition from the grand allegories of the soul into the rhythm of a Monday morning is to engage in the practice of somatic de-identification. This is the practical process of moving through the world not as a body trying to survive, but as a soul utilizing a ghostly instrument. The first real-world implication is a radical shift in health and body image. When you view the body as a ghostly vessel, rather than your ultimate identity, you move from a state of body anxiety to one of body stewardship. You tend to the flesh, the diet, and the exercise, not out of a desperate fear of death, but out of a refined respect for your equipment. If the body is a ghost, a shimmering, temporary manifestation, then the pressure to achieve physical perfection dissolves. You begin to treat your body with the same detached care a musician treats an expensive violin. You realize that the vibrational quality of your inner life, your thoughts, your peace, your love, is actually what maintains the health of the ghost. Stress is revealed as a frequency leak that disrupts the projection. Building upon this is the practical cultivation of the witness in the marketplace. In everyday life, we are often hijacked by physical sensations or emotional triggers. Integration means practicing the 2-inch shift. When you experience pain, hunger, or a surge of anger, you practice retreating 2 inches back into the seat of the soul. You observe the sensation as if it were happening to a character in a play. Instead of saying, "I am tired," you observe, "The ghost is experiencing fatigue." This is not a denial of the physical. It is a mastery of it. By placing yourself in the position of the watcher, you prevent the ghost from dictating your state of being. This creates a profound sense of emotional resilience. In a heated argument or a high-pressure work environment, the realization that you are the soul, untouchable and eternal, allows you to remain the unmoved center. You respond from the depth of the ocean rather than reacting from the froth of the wave. Furthermore, we must address the transformation of our relationship with aging and time. In a culture obsessed with the ghost's youth, the aging process is seen as a tragedy. However, from the soul's perspective, aging is simply the thinning of the veil. As the physical form becomes less dense and more translucent, it allows the light of the soul to shine through more clearly. Practical integration means greeting every gray hair and wrinkle as a sign of sublimation. You stop fighting time and start inhabiting the vertical. You realize that while the ghost is subject to linear time, the ticking of the clock, the soul exists in the eternal now. This removes the hurry from life. You no longer feel the need to do everything before you die because you realize that you cannot die. You can only change clothes. This leads to a life of profound presence, where you act not out of a fear of running out of time, but out of the joy of being an eternal traveler. A third practical implication involves the architecture of choice. Most of our decisions are made by the ghost's survival instinct. the part of us concerned with safety, status, and material accumulation. Becoming soul-identified means making choices from the legacy of the flame. You ask, which choice serves the expansion of my light? Which path honors the truth of my eternal nature? This often leads to a simplification of life. You stop chasing the ghostly ornaments of the material world and start investing in the vibrational assets of wisdom, compassion, and creative expression. In your career and your relationships, you look for resonance rather than just results. You realize that because you are the soul, you are already whole. You are not seeking the world to fill a hole in you. You are entering the world to share the overflow of your presence. This is the end of vigilante living and the beginning of sovereign contribution. Finally, we encounter the duty of the conscious transition. This is the most profound integration, the removal of the fear of death. If the body is the ghost, then death is not an end, but a dissipation of the mist. It is the moment the projector is turned off, so the light can return to the booth. Practically, this means we live life with a lightness of touch. We love deeply, we build great things, and we cherish the ghost, but we do not clutch. We practice the art of sacred detachment, knowing that everything the ghost touches is as ephemeral as the ghost itself. This makes you indigestible to the fears of the world. A person who is not afraid of death is a person who cannot be controlled by the systems of the shadow. You become a rogue light in the matrix, living with a level of freedom that is terrifying to those who still believe they are the flesh. These practical integrations shift our daily experience from a battle for survival to a divine performance. We move through the supermarket, the office, and the home as the royal traveler in disguise. We honor the ghost of our body. We feed it, we rest it, and we love it. But we never again mistake the smoke for the flame. By anchoring ourselves in the witness, valuing resonance over accumulation, and viewing aging as an unveiling, we begin to radiate a frequency that is not of this world. We are no longer haunted by our mortality. We are the ones haunting the material world with the undeniable evidence of the eternal. We have traced the arc of the luminous inversion, moving from the density of physical identification down into the primary, ocean-like awareness of the soul. Our journey has revealed that the materialist worldview, the belief that we are biological accidents destined to secrete a temporary spirit, is the real hallucination. The truth is far more majestic. You do not have a soul. You are the soul, and the body is the ghost. This conclusion is not a mere philosophical resting place. It is the threshold of absolute sovereignty. To finalize this inquiry is to stand at the edge of your own eternity and realize that you have never been in danger. The body, as the ghost, is a fleeting effect of your eternal cause, a beautiful, fragile apparition that allows the infinite to taste the finite. The fears, the anxieties, and the sense of smallness that have haunted the human experience are revealed as the ghost's perspective, the frantic concerns of the smoke that has forgotten the flame. The transformational call of this realization is a summons to abdicate the throne of the flesh. It is an invitation to cease living as a refugee in the material world and to begin living as the royal heir of the spirit. This is the move from the contracted self to the expanded field. You are being called to inhabit your life with the weightlessness of the sovereign, a person who knows that their primary reality is untouched by the dramas of the time-bound world. This transformation does not ask you to leave your life. It asks you to bring your true life to your existence. You are being called to operate from the virtual center, the part of you that does not need material accumulation, social validation, or physical immortality to know its own worth. This is the ultimate rogue act, to live with profound purpose while being entirely indifferent to the temporary rewards of the ghost's game. This shift in perspective requires a final, decisive divorce from the system of fear. The matrix of the modern world operates on the assumption that you believe you are the ghost. It threatens the ghost's survival, it critiques the ghost's appearance, and it promises the ghost a temporary salvation through consumption. The moment you realize you are the soul, these threats lose their power. You become inviolable. The transformational call is to cultivate a sacred indifference to the narratives of the shadow. You stop trying to perfect the ghost and start focusing entirely on the radiance of the flame. Your primary question becomes, is my frequency in resonance with my eternal nature? You realize that the highest service you can perform for the world is to become a vibrational anchor for the truth of the eternal. A person who stands rooted in the soul, unshakably neutral and vibrantly compassionate, acts as a frequency modulator that lifts the entire field. Ultimately, the understanding that you are the soul and the body is the ghost leads us to the dissolution of the great other. We realize that if my body is a ghost and your body is a ghost, then the divisions we see, race, gender, nation, and even species, are merely translucent veils. Behind the ghostly disguises of the world, there is only one flame, one singular, ocean-like awareness observing itself through billions of unique, spectral interfaces. The transformational call is to live with this unity consciousness as your operational default. Compassion becomes not a moral choice, but a spiritual recognition of the self in the other. You are being called to treat every interaction as an encounter between royalty, to look through the eyes of the ghost and greet the soul that resides behind them. This is the end of separation and the beginning of the age of resonance. As you step away from this exploration and back into the clanging theater of your life, do not go as a biological unit trying to be more spiritual. Go as the flame that has realized it is wearing smoke. Move with the lightness of the royal traveler. Tend to the ghost of your body with detached love, but never again bow to its demands. Make your choices from the legacy of the flame. Love without clutching, build without attachment, and meet the changes of the world with the iron stillness of a being who knows it cannot die. You are the constant watcher, the royal glassblower, the deep ocean. The harvest of your fear is over. The dawn of your inviolable sovereignty has begun. Live from the flame, for it is the only thing about you that is truly real.